Welcome back, everybody. We're on episode 2. It's week 2 of the new podcast Handstand. I am your host, JR Jakeway, and this podcast is solely dedicated to the recreational gymnastics world, coaches, parents, and even owners. We have a lot of things that we want to talk about today, but first, I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who reached out to me last week after the first episode dropped. The emails, the texts, the calls that I got. I really appreciate your support. A lot of you shared my podcast link on your socials, and it means a lot to me that you are supporting the podcast. Thank you so much. I also received feedback, questions, comments from the topics that we talked about last week. So I think what I'm going to do is start every episode with reading some questions or comments from you, the people who contacted me throughout the week, the listeners. So one of the questions that I received last week in response to the 5 things that I said coaches should be. Everybody, welcome back. This is episode 2 of my podcast called Podcast Handstand, a gymnastics podcast solely dedicated to the recreational gymnastics world. I am your host, JR Jakeway. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who supported the podcast last week via text messages, emails, calls. I really appreciate everyone listening, and those of you who shared the podcast link, thank you so much. I'm going to start every episode from now on with either questions or comments that I received regarding the previous episodes. So let's talk about a couple things. Last week, I gave 5 questions that parents could be asking when they're shopping around for a gymnastics club. And I had one of the questions was, JR, when you listed your 5 questions to ask, you did not mention the question, can I stay and watch my child? I didn't ask that question because that should not ever be something you should have to ask. If a gym is not allowing a parent to stay and watch their recreational kid do gymnastics, do not go to that gym. Under no circumstances should there be a situation where parents are not allowed to stay and watch. I do want to say that if there has been an issue with a specific parent and you know of a specific parent that has been asked not to come back in the gym, maybe there was an issue with that parent and management, coach, another parent, that's different. Completely different than blanketly telling all parents they cannot stay and watch, especially at a recreational level. In my opinion, under no circumstances should parents never be told they cannot stay and watch their kid. And it doesn't matter if it's rec or team competition, it's just uncalled for. And in my opinion, that is a deal breaker across the board. So we shouldn't have to ask that because it should be assumed. Second thing, I had someone ask, can I interrupt a class and discipline my child? Now, this is can be a touchy subject for a lot of parents and coaches. I'm going to tell you what I would respond, how I would respond to a parent ask me this question. I would politely tell them that while I appreciate their support, I would prefer to be given the opportunity to discipline the children in class. However, if I needed their assistance, I will call on them. I think that there's a couple things that parents need to understand when they interrupt class by speaking to their children. And I would say most of the time, if you are in a rec class, particularly a preschool class, the parents are sitting pretty close to the kids. In my experiences, usually preschool parents are closer. For rec kids, the 5 and older kids, they might be a little farther away. And while as a coach, I understand that you want your child to listen and that you're doing everything you can to, really help the coach. When you interrupt class by talking to the kid, whether it's disciplining or even giving praise, it takes focus off what's happening in class with the coach and the rest of the kids, and it places it on you. And while that may not seem like a huge problem to you, it does reinforce to the kids that they should be watching you versus listening to the coach. It also requires me to focus as a coach, bring everybody, including the other kids who aren't your children, back to me as the focal point. There's been times in my classes where parents have disciplined their children and it was appreciated, though I would have to go up after class and ask them, please, if you could refrain from doing that unless I ask, I would appreciate it. It also gives the green light that if you're doing that, other parents are going to see that, and then they're going to start doing that as well. And before you know it, you just got parents talking to their kids throughout the class the entire time, and it really can become a huge distraction. So my suggestion as a coach, please don't do that. But if there's any information that you as a parent can give me that can help negate the problem and make it better, I definitely will appreciate it. And if there is an issue that I feel like I can't resolve, I will absolutely call on your assistance, usually just having the child go to the parent and give the parent the opportunity to talk to their kid on the side. All right. Thank you for those questions. Please, if there's anything that you hear on the podcast that you need clarification or you have questions about, shoot me up on the Instagram. My handle is at JR the Gymnastics Coach. And we're going to get started with this week's episode. All right, this week, the topics are positive and negatives that you can see in a gymnastics training center. So this is a great opportunity for you as a parent who may already have kids in gymnastics to kind of listen to these suggestions, and you can then go back to your gym and watch and see if this is happening in your gym. Owners, if your coaches are doing some of these things or not doing some of these things, these are great ways to see if you are getting the most out of your coaches, if they're doing the best job they possibly could do. And even fellow coaches, if you see people who are doing this in the gym, or even if you realize maybe you're doing it, it gives you kind of a better understanding of how you can improve and what it looks like to parents. The first thing is, while you are in class and you're watching, does your child's coach constantly have their eyes on all the kids in class? Or are they positioning themselves to where when they spot somebody, their back is turned to the class? This is something that we have to constantly go over with younger coaches, less experienced coaches, because the response that I receive most often when I make this correction to somebody is, well, I spot with my right arm. And when I spot with my right arm, it turns my back to the rest of the class. This is actually a really simple solution to this. If you are right dominant, and you want to spot with your right arm, that's fine. Just turn yourself around and go to the other side of the piece of equipment so you can continue to spot with your right arm, but you have your eyes on everybody in class. This is important for several reasons, but number one, it's a safety issue. If your child's coach cannot see everybody in class, then how will they know if somebody gets injured? How will they know if there are issues with a child and another child in class? How do they know if people are actually taking their turns, and how do they apply corrections? So it's really important that as a coach, that they are monitoring everybody, and throughout the rotation, while they are spotting one station, they are continuing to look at the other stations and giving cues. If they have 4 stations set up, you're spotting one, but you are giving praise or corrections to everybody at the other 3 stations. So parents, that's something that you can clearly see in class, and hopefully the coach that your child has right now is doing that job. Also, do you hear your coach calling out child's names? Do they know the names of everybody in class? Especially with the younger kids, being able to use those names and refer to them when you're making corrections. Hey, Jim, I see you're doing this. That's a great job. Hey, Sally, I need you to hold that a little bit longer. That will increase productivity, and the kids will really respond well to hearing their names when you are making corrections. All right, the next one. When you have a complaint in the gym, parents, who are you complaining to? Now, I know the first thing that people want to do is they want to go up to the front desk and they want to complain to whoever's working at the front desk. Just know that unless that is a manager or an owner at the front desk, those front desk employees will usually have to write down the complaint and then either tell a manager or tell an owner later on. And so many times I will tell you that those complaints get lost or they are not communicated correctly. So it's kind of lost in translation. What I would suggest you do, if you are a parent and you have a complaint, I would go to the front desk and I would ask to speak to a gym director, a manager, or an owner. If none of those folks are available to talk to you at that time, I would ask for their email address and I would email them. and I would expect a response back within 48 hours. But in reality, 24 hours really should be the longest that you would have to wait for a response. And if you don't hear back from them, I would just email them again, or I'd contact the front desk and see if they're available. You absolutely should be receiving a very timely response from management, but if you're not, then that's a little bit of a concern, because how important are parent concerns or feedback if they are not responding in a timely manner? So, making sure that we're speaking to the person who really can do something about that versus just kind of dumping it on the person who is at the front desk. And with that said, please make sure that we're always being respectful for the people at the front desk. They're there doing their job. They are not in control of what's happening in the gym. And the times that I've seen parents come up and just unleash on those poor front desk workers, it's not fair to them. So please keep in consideration that they are a third party at that point. And though you may be frustrated and someone should be able to hear your response, you should really be taking that up with somebody who can actually make a change and create a solution for you. Next thing, do coaches regularly speak with parents either before or after classes to give updates? Now, I think this is really important, and we have to remember that as gymnastics coaches, we are in customer service. When a child comes into our class, it is our job to not only welcome them, but also to introduce ourselves to the parents. Getting to know who the family members are goes a long way, creating a relationship with them, because it's important that those parents know me as a coach and get to know me. Because if something happens in class and the child goes home, for example, and says, I didn't do this, or if I did that, if a parent knows me and gotten to know my personality or has stayed to watch my classes, they are going to give me the benefit of the doubt, or more likely to give me the benefit of the doubt when they hear something like that. Well, that doesn't sound like something Coach JR would say. Let's talk to him. So it only will benefit you, the coach, in order for you to have a better working relationship with the parents. It also goes a really long way for you to be able to speak with them more comfortably if there is a discipline problem. But as a coach, you should be giving updates regularly, and you really should learn to speak to coaches. For those who have anxiety, I understand it can be tough, but this job requires that you are able to speak to parents. And sometimes those conversations are fun, and other times they are uncomfortable situations. So practice getting to know, introduce yourself. And if you are having issues with that, speak to your management about ways that you can practice speaking to parents. Next one, when you are in your gymnastics facility, what do their bathrooms look like? This can be a point of a lot of concern, because there are gyms that I've gone to where their bathrooms are disgusting. Also, there's gyms who do a really good job of keeping those clean. If you go into your gym and it's consistently dirty, the bathrooms don't look like they've been clean in days, you need to consider how clean is the rest of the gym. The mats that your kids are rolling on and working on, are those being cleaned? I would say probably not. If those bathrooms aren't really clean, chances that the rest of the mats in that gym, they will not be clean either. And then number 5, we have, is there a regularly scheduled testing date that your child's gymnastics program goes through? Which means, are you being consistently updated on your child's progress through a testing program, regime? In a lot of the gyms, they will do a 4-week or 6-week cycle where every 4 or 6 weeks they do testing. A lot of the gyms are now going to an electronic testing system where they have like tablets, and on the testing weeks, they will mark off the skills that your child has mastered, and then you'll receive an email. If you are not receiving this information consistently and find out how consistent it should be, then that is an issue with the coach not fulfilling their job requirements. You're paying for a service, and chances are you're paying pretty good money to have your child in gymnastics. There should be a very, very laid out curriculum of skills that your child should be working toward, as well as feedback on where they're at. At any moment in time, a parent should be able to look and see where their child is in relation to either finishing that level or what they need to accomplish in order to move up to the next level, a lot of gyms will have an online portal, a parent portal where you can go in and just kind of check the status. If you have one of those, go in and check when is the last time your child has been evaluated. And if they have not been evaluated in the last couple months, then that is something that you should be talking to the owner or management about. All right, I know we've covered a lot of issues today. These are things that, for me, as a previous owner, as a gym director, very important. It's important that my parents feel like they're getting consistent feedback on the progress of their children. It's important that the parents are introduced and can consistently talk with a coach if need be. And it's important that they feel like the gym that they're at is clean and that the coaches that are taking these kids and coaching gymnastics are well prepared. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the content for today. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, please make sure that you reach out and talk to me. My Instagram is at JR the Gymnastics Coach. I look forward to another week with you next week. And for those of you celebrating the Christmas season, Merry Christmas, and we'll talk next week.